I have a question relates to existential ideas or fear, I guess. Um, and just I guess maybe it's in a way more of a curiosity and a fascination because I personally don't have, or at least not to my personal awareness, have consciously experienced deep sleep, which I understand to be the pure state of consciousness. Um, And I'm just wondering if you experience deep sleep consciously in your personal awareness after the fact, and or if you have known any contemporary teachers, not people like Ramana Maharshi or John Klein, like luminaries like that. I mean, suppose we hear stories that they've done all these things, but you know, we none of us have, well, maybe John Klein, but at least not in terms of a Ramana Maharshi. None of us were really around then. But in terms of like yourself or contemporary teachers or contemporary students that you know, have you come across any that have, in their personal awareness after the fact, recognized that they were aware during deep sleep? So awareness without any objects.
Awareness is always without objects. The primary object is I am an object. I am a male object, a female object, whatever. I am an object. It's a primary object. From the arising of that primary object, all objects derive, flow, are, are a result of the primary object. The ocean, one could say, gives rise to billions of waves, but the waves are not objects arising in the ocean. They're, they're the ocean waving. So, from the perspective of the ocean, there are no waves because it's all the ocean. But from the perspective of some conceptual perspective, there is the ocean and there is the wave, big waves, small waves, foamy waves, less foamy waves, etc. So, from a conceptual perspective, there are objects and there is consciousness. But from the perspective of consciousness, the objects are are the waves of the ocean. They're consciousnessing. Our experience is non-stop consciousnessing, but it's veiled. Its experience is veiled with the conceptual realm that I am an object, I am a wave from the conceptual perspective. There are 20 billion waves, and I am wave number 765,382. And this particular wave, among many other waves, doing what I'm doing conceptually, conceptual realm. In Turiya, there is no conceptual realm. In the Hindu tradition, they speak of the three states and Turiya: the waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state, and the non-state, Turiya, which is the screen of all states, or the non-state in which all states appear, the stateless state, the ocean within which waves appear. Turiya is not a state, it's more like our true nature, the still mind, the still presence, within which all sorts of thoughts and meditations and perceptions appear, and within which the primary object arises. I am this person, I am this body mind, I am Thomas, I am Magdi, I am whatever. Within Turiya, the primary state arises, but Turiya remains. In spite of whatever arises within it, it remains as it is. It remains in non-arising.
Wouldn't deep sleep and Turiya be synonymous? Or are
In,
they somehow
in, deep,
different?
in deep sleep, um, ignorance, meaning the me aspect, as well as the world, body, mind, meaning that perception, the perceptual realm, are under anesthesia. In Turiya, they're dead. In deep sleep, the potential still remains, the potential of arising in the potential of ignorance, meaning the sense of separation or personal identification, is still there, dormant, not kinetic, not active. In Turiya, it is completely absent.
Hmm. Interesting. I've never heard of that.
So the consciousness never sleeps, never becomes an object. An object is defined conceptually. This is a tree. This is a thought. This is a car. This is bodily sensation. There is a conceptual aspect to objects. The, the concept of matter is not made out of matter. It is made out of consciousness. Because as soon as you remove consciousness out of the concept of matter, the concept is gone. So the essence or the substance of the concept of matter is consciousness, that which you cannot remove out of it without it disappearing. So a thought is consciousness in motion, but it's still consciousness. It's not actually a thought in movement. The thought does not move. Its consciousness takes on the form of a movement, which is the thought. Now, in terms of your experience, your question about deep sleep, it is more correct to say that Turiya is the true experience of um, our true self, of a sage, if you want to use that word. But Turiya is our true, the experience of our true nature, our true self. A sage is simply a term that refers to consciousness recognizing its true nature and no longer leaving it. But if you ask your question with the assumption that you are a person, your assumption stands in the way of your understanding. When you ask your question with the assumption you are not a sage and somebody else is a sage, you have already set the ground rules uh, that, in fact, you are some physical entity or some entity separate. And so a separate entity cannot comprehend non-separation by the simple fact that a separate entity is illusory. The hypnotic effect of the belief in separation stands in the way. But experientially, before you go to memory, before you go to the past, experientially, meaning in this moment, you are awareness. And the only way for you not to be awareness is to go to some narrative or to go to some sensations that you refer refer to determine what you are. But when you don't go to a narrative, you don't go to thought to tell you what you are, and you don't go to sensation to tell you what you are, then what are you if not this formless aware presence?
Yeah, I guess maybe it's maybe a bit um too much of one's personal uh be the word, expectation or desiring to um, be aware during deep sleep, that's more of a personal um, desire or expectation versus, just being um, just being open and not necessarily expecting it. But at the same time, it's like we have to use our minds to kind of try to learn things, even including non-duality. And there's some value in, I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and
But let me say
but
some more,
sure, sure.
say some more about deep sleep, just to share with you my experience, because maybe that's what you're asking. Yeah. So my experience in deep sleep is I'm always available. I like sometimes middle of the night, Tara would say, Magdi, I want to share something with you. And then there is immediate presence. It's like, it's like now, I mean, if I'm sitting here and somebody knocks on the door, there is an immediate presence to somebody knocking on the door. It's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, wow, it's just that there isn't a fog or a fog or a there isn't, there is no time. There is no, definitely not a need in time or or me being disturbed, or it's as if the deep sleep state and the waking state are merged. Similarly, like in the waking state, it's like the deep sleep state, except that what I'm perceiving, the phenomenal perceptions are more consistent in the waking state than they are in the deep sleep state. I'm aware of some images that appear. I don't dream as such, and yet there are images that appear. It's not like I am dreaming, and yet I am dreaming because there are images that are appearing here and there. They have no relevance or no significance whatsoever. It's like watching the weather in a way. The main thing that is of significance that at least I find it to be significant is that the sense of me is no longer there. The sense of being existing in time or in space is no longer there. This does not mean there is an end of perceptions. No. So I would say that I'm always awake, but not always awake as a person. More correct way to say it is that consciousness is always awake. Experientially, I'm always awake. Meaning consciousness, is always awake. But it's not a big deal. I don't want to make something special uh, out of a character in Magdi. No, consciousness is always awake. It's our experience our reality is that consciousness is always awake. But there is the me veil, there is the veil of believing and feeling that I'm somebody existing in time and progressing and moving forward. And that's sort of like the veil. That's somehow what grabs our attention. And it grabs our attention not just at the mind level, but also at the feeling level. We feel like, oh, I'm getting better. I'm not getting better. I got it right. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? So there is that feeling too. That's also part of the veil. So I would say that it's always deep sleep. I'm, I'm always in deep sleep, or I am deep sleep. And yet I'm awake. I'm always awake. I don't know if that's helpful. I'm just trying to speak a little bit to what I'm understanding your interest about
Yeah,
hearing this.
it was kind of you kind of you spoke kind of uh I guess maybe kind of indirectly to my question, but it was helpful though. Like I appreciated it. And I guess in a way it's like I kind of think like I don't know, maybe I kind of holding in my mind like some kind of trophy of being able to be in deep sleep and be kind of aware when it's not really very relevant.
Oh no, the biggest trophy in my experience about the dream state and the deep sleep state is that fear was gone, the sense of me was gone. It's but you see the thing is most of the work that we do about the freedom from the sense of separation, we do it in the waking state. Like for
Right,
example, now, like this conversation.
right.
But it does have an impact on the deep sleep state. At some point, you will find, at least sharing my experience, that the biggest trophy was the freedom that I experienced in the waking state. Also, I found it in the deep sleep state, in the dream as well as the deep sleep state. So it was across all states. Similarly, Thomas, uh, the sense of uh, separation and limitation and worry and anxiety and existential fear, you will also find it in your dream state and deep sleep state.
Oh yeah.
So, but the bulk of the work is in the waking state. I would add one more thing. There's also my recollection that there was a certain very brief period in my uh, exploration where in the dream state, uh, I also I was awake to the me aspect in my dream state. I don't know if I make sense what you're hearing, what I'm saying.
Actually, what you're saying right now brings up another observation I had about sleep that's really important that I just remembered that I'd love to ask you about. And that observation that I noticed is like I've only very kind of briefly had lucid moments of dreaming, very briefly, and I don't really seem to be able to control my dream. But what I noticed that's very, very interesting is that when I become lucid to a dream, my sense of identity for I know it's in the timeless, but it seems like there's some time to it. So let me just put some time to it. So it seems like for like a few seconds or maybe a minute, like I'm in this state where I don't have an identity. Like I see that I'm dreaming and I'm in this state where I don't have identity.
Mhm.
And then in a few seconds, or what seems to be a few seconds, obviously in the timeless, so there's no time, but what seems to be a few seconds or a minute, I'm in this state where I'm like, I'm observing the dream and I'm like, my sense of identity disidentifies from the dream. And then
Yes,
I'm in this like nether world where
yes,
I have no identity. But then my identity shifts to my waking state identity. Like the Thomas who has a job
yes,
doing this, that's the son of so and so and so and so, et cetera, et cetera. But there is this moment where it's like I'm in this state of like I'm disidentified from the dream and I see that it's a dream.
yes,
And then I'm like in this state of like just not
yes,
no identification. And then the identification shifts to
right,
the waking state identity. And then usually then I wake up.
yes, yes,
Usually then I wake up out from sleep.
right, right.
Or I'll be in the dream, but I'll be dreaming about my waking state issues.
Yes, I got it.
What I've noticed is so interesting about it is that it kind of like reveals the fact that we're neither like if you think about it with some nuance, what you realize is that, well, who am I then in that state where I have no identity?
Yes,
Is that non-existent? I mean, there was something there, right? There was the
it's
nothingness that we all
it's
are. It
yeah,
was that that
right.
was
So
that.
it's pure awareness taking on the form of a dream, but without the sense of separation. Without it's pure consciousness.
Hmm.
Well, taking on the form of a dream, but not being somebody, not being limited.
Hmm.
So it's a uh, it's a glimpse into consciousness.
Yeah.
But consciousness is pure and takes on the form of a dream, of a perception, but without Thomas, without being Thomas, without consciousness being Thomas. Thomas
Hmm.
meaning a limited storyline, limited narrative.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
I'd like to say is about what we're sharing here is that uh, this is really, really wonderful that what you're sharing with me about, your uh, waking dream, wakeful dream, and seeing the Thomas character coming in, but also being Thomasless in a way.
Yeah.
uh,
Being nothingness.
right. Uh, but what is I have sort of a hunch that I wouldn't focus too much on working in that area,
Hmm.
but of course I don't mean to diminish the the insight that one gets from a waking waking dream, wakeful dream. But I would not work in that arena. I would focus my inquiry um, into the exploration of, what basis do I have in the waking state to believe that I, which is the reality which perceives the reality, which is that I consciousness is personal and limited. I would explore that in the waking state. And I will also, of course, explore in the waking state um, being the screen, the available screen, availability to everything which appears without engaging, except for practical reasons, of course, with whatever appears to you. And it seems that you have I may be projecting, I don't know, but an affinity for also uh, being available for this exploration in your dreams and in your sleep, which is wonderful. Um, and that affinity, if you do have it, will uh, make available to you uh, glimpses of your true nature in your sleep and in your dream, which is beautiful, which is wonderful. So in my case, 99% of my work was in the waking state, I would say, in the meditative states, of course, working uh, very little in the let us body minds differ. I mean, God appears to us in so many ways. I just feel drawn to share with you, not to get overly focused on any experience.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I'm not at all, I'm not at all into like, I don't know, somehow applying some strategy or practice to have lucid dreams or do, to figure something out in the dream. It was just simply to me, like the fact that we sleep and the fact that we dream and that there's deep sleep. I mean, it's such a huge clue. I mean, it's such a massive clue in our lives, like
Oh yeah,
of who we are, you know.
yes.
And then that plus the realization that I had about how my identity switches in or the realization I had about my very limited ability to have lucid dreams. Because my some people, I know some people who have lucid dreams, they can do crazy. I mean, they can really direct their dream and whatnot. But my lucid dreaming is just very, very simple. It's just simply I wake up from the dream, I disidentify,
Mm,
and to me that space where I disidentify and then I don't know who I am. I mean that's such a huge clue, and it's
yes,
kind of like a palpable thing
yes.
that we can all point to. And like if I don't know if other people experience that, but if other people do experience that, it's a very kind of palpable thing that you can kind of recognize in your own lived experience of being, there's nothing there, there's no identity, there's no
Mhm,
objects. You're you're just you're really just
mhm.
pure consciousness of pure nothingness.
Whenever there is a moment of understanding, there are no objects. Whenever there is a glimpse into true nature, there are no objects. And it's just a matter of seeing it that whenever you understand something, which is momentous to understand, it's a major shift.
Yeah.
Pre-understanding, you didn't get it, but when the moment you understand something, it's quite major understanding. Understanding in general is major. There are no objects. There is just, as you said, a glimpse that there is the formless, the pure consciousness.
Hmm. Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, okay, Thomas.